Sean Cleaver, you mosey on down to Square Enix and you play a game. What game is that, though?
That game is Final Fantasy 15, Adam.
Okay, I have quite a lot of questions, and I don't know where to begin because this is a game that Square Enix have put out 2 different demos of. One I really didn't like, and one I quite liked. I guess what did you even play? What were they showing, and how much did you play?
Well, we managed to have enough time to play up until the 4th chapter of the game. We didn't actually get that far because we spent a lot of time exploring, seeing what the game was like and everything else. One of the things that the game starts with is a disclaimer that says that this is a game for Final Fantasy fans and for new players.
Oh.
And I am one of the new players.
I think we can forget about
So
Wait, hang on. So they're saying it's for both people?
They're saying it's for both people.
You can only come so far.
Okay, but when they say, do they specify which Final Fantasy? Because saying, I don't want to delve too deep, but saying like this is for Final Fantasy fans, well, that's cool. But I loved Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10, and then like the rest of them are all right, but they're very different games, you know.
Yeah. No, they are very different games, and yeah, it just says Final Fantasy. I mean, I know, I get it, because it's kind of like saying, hey, this Doctor Who is for everyone, but mostly the people that like Colin Baker. It's such a weird thing, but yeah, it's for all Final Fantasy fans. I'm not sure how exactly, because I am a new player, how that really translates to other Final Fantasy fans, but I'm sure we'll discover this as we talk.
Yeah, I mean, so they're saying it's for people like yourself as well. Then, so what? I mean, what's the initial impression? You know, I mean, you say like you played up to a certain amount, but like that doesn't really. I don't know how long each chapter sort of thing is. I mean, it's a Final Fantasy game, but again, which kind of Final Fantasy game? So I really don't know whether you tell me what your experience is, what you thought of, you know, so far.
Well, one of the things about this Final Fantasy game is it is open world, so the sort of length of the game is very much dependent on how you approach it. You could quite happily spend a lot of time in the first area, which is called Hammerhead. I always get confused between Hammerhead and Hammerfall, but that's 2 different games. Hammerhead, which is sort of a nice kind of middle out of nowhere American kind of little sprinkle of towns. Sort of you go past and there's a gas station with a couple of houses around it, kind of thing. And you can spend as many time there leveling yourself up as you want to before you actually start to move on with the story. So the actual length of the game is probably very dependent on the attitude you take towards it, really. Do you stay, have a look around at this lovely designed area and kill a lot of things and level up and get to know the game, or do you just go straight into it? It's very much up to the user's experience, and it doesn't really guide you one way or the other.
But I mean, I'm going to have to be that guy and ask this question straight away, and I apologise slightly for doing so. But how does it look?
It doesn't look too bad. It's probably not as polished as I thought it would be. Now, that is obviously, this is a preview build, so there's going to be a little bit of problems here and there. But what I sort of mean is the look of it doesn't feel very unique at times. I mean, we, especially when you sort of go around Hammerhead, especially, and you have a look at all of these kind of grassy areas that change into this kind of really dusty mounting areas. Not really mountainous, but sort of like rocky. Kind of things, like if you were going around sort of like the Grand Canyon, Arizona kind of areas in America. Not a lot of change between what goes on. Not uninspiring, but not exactly testing everything to the best of its ability.
It's just, I'm quite surprised, because the reason I started with that line of questioning is because Final Fantasies are generally very good looking games, so I was quite surprised there to hear you say it's all right, it's and not oh, it looks amazing, you know.
But this is the thing that maybe I have from not being a Final Fantasy fan, is that I'm not looking at it compared to other Final Fantasies. I'm kind of looking at it compared to other games. I mean, if you were to look at The Witcher and Final Fantasy next to each other graphics wise, Witcher would win hands down. Not because of the imagination of it, but there are other places later on in the game which look a lot nicer. And in different towns, and it's going to be a very big, very different world all the way through it. So we've only seen a small part of it.
Something I think is worth talking about very specifically is the combat, because of the two demos. I can't explain this, so I don't know why, but the first demo I really did not like the combat. I found it very just automatic, and I didn't find it fun. The second demo, even though it's the same combat, really, I found it a little more manageable, and I think that might have been because it was a slightly easier slice of demo rather than a more cut from the middle of the game or something. How do you feel about what you've played? You know, because obviously visuals and everything are one thing, but how does it actually feel to play the game?
Well, it does feel very easy. I do have to say, like the combat, I wouldn't say it's intuitive. It's very much hack and slash. I mean, I've played quite a lot of JRPGs recently in preview, things like God Eater and things like that, and it feels very much of that ilk. You have a button, you hit that button to get the combo of things that you're doing. You have another button to block and to dodge and to get that rhythm going, and you have a special attack. And of course, with Final Fantasy, because you're in a party, you can hold down either L1 or the left bumper button, depending on your console, and you can select everybody else to use their special attack to get a better result. But it doesn't feel... The word of it doesn't really feel incredibly satisfying. Like when you enter a combat, and I've heard this from people that have played other Final Fantasy games, because some of them have been turn-based, is that you do feel this kind of satisfaction from the battle because you've earned that win. And the problem with it being in a real-time combat situation is it is very hack and slash. It is very punch, 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 or slash, 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 etc., etc. It doesn't really feel like you've actually done masses to earn that win.
Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure that it would have worked with a turn-based element in the world that they've got it in at all. I mean, I think that would take some monumentally intelligent game design. It's not bad. It's very fun for you to actually go on and carry on playing the game, which I think is probably most of their point. They didn't want the combat to really take over what is going to be a very big experience, as it probably has done in earlier games. So it's functional. It's not satisfactory.
See, for me, the problem is, like, I'm a fan of those games that were turn-based, but I'm also not one of those dickheads that's like, oh, it's disgraceful that they're not anymore. I understand that things move on, things change. My problem with it is not that they have sort of ditched turn-based, because, like, I Am Setsuna had that, and it was still great. It's that they've gone with this kind of, like you say, a hack-and-slash style, but it doesn't have anywhere near the nuance or quality of a hack and slash game. It like you say, it's very, very repetitive, and like hold a button to keep doing hit, and it's like that is fine. I don't know that it's the sort of thing you want in a massive, presumably epic length RPG.
Well, there are things that obviously make it better, because you do level up, you get better weapons which do different things.
True.
You also be able to use magic, and one of the magic things is you can basically build grenades out of your magic and use fire points and other things, and use the items that you collect around the world to give different kind of effects to that. Some of it is like a multiple explosion, some of it is a longer fire damage, for example, and sometimes you get to attack things that have weaknesses to those elemental things, and then that's quite satisfying. But to actually just get in there to start with and find the first enemies that you find are these kind of scorpion things, which are called Reaper Tails, and you get in there, you mash the button, then it tells you to learn how to block and to move, and you do that, and then you think, okay, what's next? And nothing comes. So you think, okay, this is going to be not a minor part of the game, but I think the combat is a part of the game that isn't intended to be the draw of the game.
Okay, I mean, we wrap this up then by sort of asking, as someone who's not what you would call a Final Fantasy fan, you've played it. How do you feel of what you've played? Is it something you will be looking toward, perhaps going forward, or is it just like, I've played it and whatever, not for me? Or where do you sit right now?
I'm sat on the fence a little bit because I look at it not as a Final Fantasy game. I look at it as an RPG, and obviously the release date's been pushed to November as we currently speak, and I quite like that because there isn't really a lot of RPG games coming out this year apart from Skyrim Remastered, so it might well fill that hole for me quite nicely, but I still feel, even though these characters are in there and you get the idea of what this is, especially if you've watched anime or anything else, I still feel like I'm not enough of a fan to really understand the universe straight away. It doesn't give me enough of a beginner's guide into the universe as I would have liked it to. So I still had my games journalist typical British cynicism about how these characters looked like they looked like they were about to be a support act on a My Chemical Romance tour or something like that. And it's fun and it's good once you get into it and you get past it, but it's very easy to just sort of look at them and go, okay, so I can't access you because I don't know what you're about. And of course, as the story expands, I can't spoil the story. You get to connect with the characters a bit more, but to start with, it's very hard.
I would say, I mean, because I imagine people are going to think we've both been very down on it. I mean, I've only played the demo, and you're not perhaps. Well, no, you are the target audience apparently. But we should also just finish with saying it's very difficult to demo this kind of game. It's a game that's multiples of 10 hours long, so it's difficult to get across everything it is in a preview session. But one way or another, that's what you think of it.
Exactly, and there's so many different caveats to the way that you can play it. It's very much the experience that you have as the player, and lots of Final Fantasies always have been. Even though it's a shared story, it's a story where everybody has their own reaction to it, their own way to get to it. And I think with more play, you'll certainly get there. It's certainly not turned me off by playing this in this 4 hours that I managed to get to play it. In fact, it's made me want to see what goes on further, to see if that actually really builds on the groundwork they've laid out, because it is pretty solid groundwork. It obviously feels like there is a system in place to make these characters entertaining throughout the entire game. The combat, whilst it doesn't do loads of ridiculously super cool things, it does enough to get by when that happens, which makes me think, okay, there's going to be a lot more things in the game away from the combat, so I shouldn't really be too worried about that. And then when you've got the driving, which is very placid, it's quite a nice break for you to just put in the CD in game in the car, which is all the previous Final Fantasy soundtracks, which is a lovely touch. It's not exactly driving music, but it's a lovely touch. So
there's lots. It's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things in there that makes me think I want to play more of this game, which is what I did come away with feeling, which I suppose is a great thing.
Yep, it is. Thank you, Sean, for your time. If you want to follow Sean, you can follow him at Cleaver Slips on Twitter and read some more of his. I mean, this is just like a chance to show you guys some of what it looks like. Oh God, I just said you guys on the video. I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But otherwise, thank you very much to Sean for his time, and we'll see you next time in another video. Bye bye.
Should have backed the GodisaGeek Patreon.